When I was growing up, I watched a lot of Cartoon Network, and that was during their heyday, the early 2000s. That means I watched a lot of Warner Brothers shows, and by extension, DC shows. The stories always stood out to me, particularly the Justice League cartoon. I couldn't understand it at the time, but I knew what I was seeing had a deeper meaning. Th- those stories grew on me, and eventually, I understood shows like Teen Titans that made me want to follow their universe and learn all of the characters inside of it. I'm not even sure where I would watch Marvel stuff back then, if I'm being honest. But I know at some point I did watch the X-Men cartoon, and it never called to me. It didn't stick. That intro is for me to say I'm a DC fanboy. But it's for reasons. Logical reasons. Since becoming an adult, I have read and learned about Marvel's histories and the stories and their characters and their universe, but it feels so forced. Not like DC, where you can see yourself in these people, in the world. My thesis, I'd say DC mirrors life while Marvel copies. I'm going to attempt to show this in 5 different areas. The progression of their characters, how they tackle religion in the sense of Batman versus Daredevil, how they tackle stories in the sense of we're going to look at Civil War versus Heroes in Crisis, how they make their heroes, DC's poster boy, Superman, versus, I would argue, Marvel's iconic ideal of what a hero should be, Captain America. And investigating how they reboot their universes. Marvel has rebooted their universes 4 to 5 times, and a little more complicated than that. DC really has only rebooted their universe twice. Me. The first villains. The first thing I want to talk about is religion and how DC and Marvel tackles it differently. Remember the thesis: Marvel copies while DC mirrors. There is a difference. Let's start with Marvel. The clearest example of religion in Marvel and how it's perceived, how it's used, how it's talked about is with the character Daredevil. He's a strong Catholic. It's part of his character. Marvel copies elements of Catholicism and it used it to enhance its character. A huge part of religion, why millions of people follow some kind of religion in this world, is because we use it as a sort of a limiter or a restraint to temper the darkness that's in every person. A main theme in Superman is that, or just the hero archetype in general, is that tells us that humans have an unlimited potential for good. But if that's true, the opposite also has to be true. And in reality, it's easier to commit evils. That's why we love superheroes, because they show us what's possible, that ideal, what humans can strive to be, better, good. Daredevil and Batman, ironically, are not superhumans, but Daredevil, in my opinion, leans more to being a superhuman, copying the superhero archetype. With super hearing, he can use echolocation, he has super smells, like that's just name a few things. And I like Daredevil. I like him as a character. He's one of the Marvel characters I do enjoy. But like humans in reality, Daredevil uses religion to temper his anger and the evil inside of him, to keep him on that right path. In contrast, we can look at Batman. There's a great quote I heard in a Monty Xander video. I think it was an Arkham Asylum critique. And I'm pretty sure the quote's by Grant Morrison. Take a listen.
Morrison. When Kevin Smith asked him what it was about Batman that made them fall in love, this is what they said. It's a long quote, but it's so good, so stick with me. You can take it even deeper, they said. Look at Christ. Christ is God made flesh. Whether you believe it or not, it's a story, like Batman. Both make us feel something. They press a human button that's really important. With Christ, they took God and nailed him to wood. They took the most spiritual thing you can imagine, the highest, most abstract, beautiful thing, and they nailed it to wood. You can't be God without knowing what it feels like to be nailed to wood. You're not God until you know what it feels like to be a mouse caught in a trap and have your neck broken, because until then, your knowledge isn't complete. That's what's inspiring about Christ. No matter how bad you're hurting, no matter how bad the flesh is crushing you and destroying you, no matter how much you're losing it, Christ says, I am here with you. I am at the darkest. I'm hung here, coughing my lungs out with you. Batman is like that. It's the idea of, I can watch my parents shot dead in the street, and everything will go to chaos, and I will make meaning of it. I will use all of my resources to make it into something positive and good. I'm going to be a hero in this, and Batman will always speak to that. Superman's different because he's of the light, but Batman's of the dark. Like Christ, he's down in the dirt with us, and he's making sense of it all. It's significant.
What DC did with Batman is mirrored the story of Christ and the religion of Christianity in general. Batman isn't a Christian in name like Daredevil is a Catholic, but he follows the Christ archetype in a modern way that creates hope for the people of Gotham and the reader itself, the reader of the title. And like Christ, he brings hope for the deplorables, that average person, the people who we think are lost. There are some verses in the Bible that supports this fact too, which is beautiful when you pair it up against Batman's iconic speech. Batman is an analogy for Christ in the DC universe. It's not Superman. Christ is not God. It is more like a version of God if he was a man on earth. He's an example. And we know who Batman is, right?
Bruce.
No, not now.
You are a disgrace.
No, you are not my father. I am not a disgrace. I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman.
Those sets of I am statements defines his modern interpretation of the character today that everybody loves. These are all things Jesus or Christ would say today. The spirit of the story of the religion, even if it wasn't there to start, which I honestly don't know if it was back in like the silver golden age of the character, but even if it wasn't, that Christ-like spirit is in Batman. That's the spiritual reason Batman is a top 3 recognizable / popular superhero in the world. Without having superpowers like Christ, DC mirrors Christ for the stories instead of copying Catholicism like Daredevil does or like Marvel does in general. Just copy paste Catholicism, something everybody already knows and relates to, and they just slap it on top of their character, Daredevil. But Batman, in terms, embodies that spirit of Christ, and he's really continuing the religion, that spirit, in his own way, in his own stories. And that's why DC doing the same thing Marvel's doing, but just better. I will just leave you with that for now, because if I try to do all the points in one video, it'll probably never get edited or uploaded. So, my thesis on why DC makes better stories for sure than Marvel, but why I think their universe is just better, is because DC mirrors life while Marvel merely copies life. And art imitates life. That doesn't make it all good, and I do like some Marvel stuff, because a broken clock is right twice a day. But I just think overall DC is just a better universe, better product than Marvel. If you want to continue the discussion, talk about how DC and Marvel uses religion in their comics, leave a comment. I will be happy to continue it with you. If you follow on Twitch, because I don't stream consistently, we can continue the conversation there. I'm really a late night streamer, American late night type of streamer. And lastly, I would recommend you join the Discord. We don't talk much because it's still small and new, but there are some cool people there, and we have a place to share our shiny Pokemon. So if you want to share your shiny Pokemon and hang out that way, that's a good place to do it. Shout out to Dig the Dug for the thumbnail, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Hopefully, it won't be too long. In that video, we will take on Candace, the Ice Gym Leader. Now that I have my Zone, and hopefully, we'll make. I'll. I did make some progress in Pokemon. I just did it on stream. So honestly, all of that's probably up somewhere on my Twitch channel. So thanks for listening. This was a super fun, cool video to make. I'm happy I got to talk about Batman, and I will catch you in the next one.